We all want to be successful. We all want to make a lot of money. We all want to have close friends who care about us and who we care about. You know, we want to have an amazing marriage. We want to have children who actually love us. But we all don't start off there. I mean, the starting line for so many people, it really kind of sucks. I mean, it did for me. And now I'm married to an amazing woman. I have a beautiful home. I have a really great business. So I'd like to share with you my story.
This is your life.
It's about me, where I was born, where I came from, what my parents were like, and what I've learned up to this point in my life. And I bet some of you that are watching are a little bit like me. I mean, we were born to parents who weren't highly educated. You would probably had grown up poor and your family really struggled to make ends meet. The point I'm making is that a lot of us pretty much start off in the same place. Most of us aren't starting life at the top 10% of society. Our parents aren't rich. You know, we probably started at the bottom 10%, if anything. And this story is really about how I made it and how I'm one story of probably millions of examples of other people who've basically worked hard and gotten what they wanted and achieved the American dream. I guess what I want you to take away from this is that you don't have to choose to be stuck where you are in your story and how it began. You can be the narrator of your own life story. I was born in an impoverished Vietnam right before the Vietnam War ended. Well, at least it ended for the Americans. It didn't really end for me. My family wasn't able to flee Vietnam until 1976, and we, like most people, escaped on a boat. So I guess that phrase FOB is true. When we finally escaped to the United States, however, it was actually January of 1980 with my mom, my sisters, and my grandparents. My dad actually had escaped a few years before. So my dad ended up making arrangements to pick us up at the airport. And I remember actually seeing him for the first time for years because I was so young. I didn't even recognize him. So we all got into my dad's old, used, broken, beat up Ford Pinto. You know, that ugly looking little car that explodes when you hit the back of the gas tank? Well, we drove one of those and all of us fit into this tiny little car and we moved into a small 2-bedroom, 2-bath where I basically shared the bedrooms with my 2 sisters for pretty much our entire adolescent life. The apartment was old, it was actually falling apart, there were holes in the ceiling, and oh my God, there were so many roaches. Ew, it was disgusting. My mom would actually pay us a penny for every single roach we'd kill, and then we'd have to squash it with like a sandal and flipper, and then we'd have to show it to her like proof that we killed it, and then she'd give us a penny for it. In all, I guess it was actually pretty good money for a 6-year-old in 1980. Then I finally went to an average public school. I struggled in elementary. I actually wasn't a very good student. I actually did okay in high school. Then finally, I actually did well enough when graduating from high school that I got into a pretty decent college here in San Diego. But pretty much, I grew up with nothing else going for me. I mean, every toy I ever had that I grew up with was actually given to me by my parents because we earned it from good grades. We didn't celebrate any holidays, we didn't have birthdays or anything like that because we grew up really poor. And like so many people my age that just got off the boat, I mean, my parents, you know, they weren't the best parents, but they did their best they can. It was basically the generation that I grew up in. Millennials and Gen Zs nowadays will probably never understand, but boomers and Generation X, we all know it too well. The discipline that we get. When I finally graduated high school, my father felt it was necessary to teach me a good life lesson in his eyes. And unlike other children that went to the high school with, I didn't get a driver's license. I didn't have my mom, be able to borrow my mom or dad's car. My dad felt that because I was a student, it was important for me to learn how to suffer. Suffer. His exact words were, "You were still young, so you need to suffer a little bit." So every morning, I would have to walk about half a mile from my house over to the trolley station where I was able to get a ride and then take a couple of classes at a community college before I started to attend UCSD full-time in the next 3 months after the summer. The trolley ride was basically 1 hour from my house, which was near the border, all the way up to downtown San Diego, and then I would have to transfer over to another trolley and take a second hour in order to commute over to the Grossmont area here in San Diego. And for those of you who live here, you know how far that is. But before I actually started my class that morning, I would actually have to take a 30-minute bus ride in order to get to the community college. Around 11 a.m., I would then be done with my classes and then have to take another bus to my job that was over in El Cajon, which basically took me about another hour using the bus. I'd then work at a muffler shop on cars until about 4 p.m., and then only to actually have to repeat that entire cycle backwards. At 6 p.m., I had the pleasure of taking a graveyard shift job at Jack in a Box, where I started as a fry cook. I then got promoted through the drive-through window in less than a month because I was doing a pretty decent job. And then my shift would end at midnight when the bus didn't even run anymore, and my dad, because he worked the graveyard shift, would pick me up to take me home, only to start this all over again at 4 a.m. the next morning. This lasted the entire summer. Starting my freshman year at UCSD couldn't start soon enough. I was so ready for school to begin. So my dad's lesson of how to suffer, check, I learned it. College wasn't easy for me. I wasn't really a good student when I was attending college, like so many of my other classmates. I didn't have any money to pay for school, so I had to actually pay for it through loans. And then I actually would work 2 jobs on campus. One of the jobs I would work is for the school cafeteria, and then the other one was basically I worked for Scripps Oceanography as a technician, and it's a fancy name basically for a guy who washes dishes, test tubes, and beakers. This is basically how I paid my way through college. The honest truth is, I barely made it out of there. I mean, when I graduated with my degree in biochemistry and cellular biology at UCSD, I was basically doing that major, again, trying to please my parents. And I should have done what pleased me. And by the time I graduated, my GPA was 1.98. And you need a 2.0 to graduate from UCSD. I was 0.2 away from meeting the minimum requirement in order to graduate. So in order to graduate, I actually had to write a letter to the dean of the school and petition for graduation. Thankfully, the school accepted my petition, granted my BS degree, and yes, I literally mean BS when I say this. It's actually now kind of funny thinking back all that work I put into it. The job actually in the biotech industry that I got after college, I was work at an intern. Eventually, I worked my way up to an analyst and then a project manager. It took me 10 years to get to that level when I was working basically for these biotech and pharmaceutical companies. Then I had to leave and be my caretaker for my mom because she actually had ovarian cancer and she had to go through chemotherapy. And another 2 years finally passed. My mom is cancer-free and survives. I didn't have a job. I was basically out of money and I really didn't know what I was gonna do. So I tried my hand at being a contractor. I started a little business doing landscape, which failed. Then I tried doing mortgages, which also failed because we were right in the middle of the 2008 Great Recession. Then I tried to work with investors. I tried to work with foreigners. I tried to sell real estate. Fail, fail, fail. In 2009, I was bankrupt. Well, basically bankrupt because I only had about $1,000 in my bank account. I couldn't make my mortgage payment on the condo I had bought. I couldn't pay the HOA dues. I couldn't pay the property taxes. I was basically losing my condo. I finally saved up enough money and bought in 2005 my condo just before the great crash. Again, great timing on my part. I mean, you're starting to get the picture here, right? I was wondering literally what the hell was wrong with me. Like I literally felt like I was cursed, that nothing was gonna go my way. It wasn't until I met my first mentor and coach And he basically taught me the real estate business, how to change my mindset, and basically what I was completely doing wrong, and I didn't even know it myself. When a mentor tells you that you can't see your own blind spot, they're not kidding. Real estate is probably one of the hardest jobs I've done. People think being a real estate agent is easy. Look, I'm gonna tell you that it isn't. Only about 15% of all licensees actually make enough money to call it a career and call themselves a professional. 85% of all the realtors that I know and that are in the market are basically what we in the industry refer to as hobbyists. They might sell one or two, and that's it. They basically have no idea what they're doing, and they're kind of faking it the entire time. This is why our industries a lot of times have a really bad image. And I really don't blame the buyers and the sellers being so mistrusting of so many agents. I mean, it's fair, right? The barrier to entry to getting your real estate license is basically way too easy. And I should know because I was one of those 85% at the beginning, faking it when I didn't know what I was doing as I was starting this career. Now, I'm actually in the top 2% of all the real estate agents in my county. And you're gonna hear people on YouTube saying, yeah, I made $1 million just doing this channel and this and that. And well, you know what? Good for them. Millions of dollars, congratulations. I can't say that. My channel is brand new, but last year in 2023, my real estate business made me $524,000 in gross commission. And in 2022 and 21, I made $540,000 and $734,000 respectively each of those years. That's not bad, right? I mean, this business has given me a life that I can only dream of. And honestly, I have the pleasure of helping families with a huge part of their life. I get to see the excitement from first-time home buyers when they get their key and they purchase their first house. I get to help couples who are growing their family and needing a bigger space. I get to help seniors transition to a smaller home because they no longer need that big, gigantic house that they raised their children in. This is a really, really fulfilling job. It's literally the best job ever. Not the easiest job though. So I guess the point I'm trying to make and pass along to you is that you don't need to be a real estate agent, but you can be amazing at any job you choose. Just stop wishing and start implementing what you want. It's not really that hard mentally if you don't overthink everything. All you need is good guidance and putting your head down and work. Do you want a secret? Do you want to know what really works? Working works. A coach told me that. And then finally, when you have some stability in your career and job, then you can think about investing, right? Building your wealth, buying rental properties, flipping houses. This brings me to the reason for making these YouTube videos. I want not only to help others and inspire them, but to show and teach people what I've learned going through my journey. This is also the same reason why I take new agents and train them in my team and help them become successful. Remember, you aren't starting at the end point. You're starting from the beginning. And we all do. We all have to start at the beginning. I hope you really have enjoyed this video. I've struggled on whether or not to make it, but I'm hoping it does resonate with you and that you found it helpful. And as always, I'm Scott, and you've been Real Estate Informed.